Thanks very much for joining us. Well, it's all over as far as the formal legislative session goes up on Beacon Hill. It ended early Thursday morning with more of a thud than a bang. Let's learn more about what happened, what didn't happen, and why with an expert observer of state policymaking, Doug Howgate, president of the nonpartisan Massachusetts Taxpayers Foundation. Doug, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Always good to see you. So for the second straight year, a major economic development bill didn't make it through. So much for one-party rule making lawmaking easy. This time around, it included funding for the life sciences and clean energy sectors, a comeback for happy hours at your local tavern, the new soccer stadium, proposed new soccer stadium over in Everett there. What happened?
So I think a few things happen in every one of these two-year end of sessions. One, you have a number of complicated bills that tend to get delayed and delayed and delayed. And then also as the time moves along, they tend to get more and more provisions included in there. And so when you look at the end of the session, you have that economic development bill. You also have two healthcare bills. You had a major housing bill. Up until last week, you had the budget. You had a major energy siting bill. And so you have a number of these very complicated bills. You have got a lot of them, and you don't have a lot of time, and especially for economic development, which tends to be a magnet for all kinds of different policy, sometimes that combination means that things don't get done when the clock strikes midnight, or in this case, 10 o'clock in the morning. I will say, though, I don't think that necessarily should be the end of the conversation, because as you say, there's a lot of really important provisions in these bills, and we need to figure out a way to get especially that economic development bill done. Well,
just so our viewers know, we now go into informal session for the rest of the year, and any effort to pass something in an informal session can be brought to a halt by the objection of one member.
Exactly.
So that's why they rush to the deadline. Doug, this may be a tough question to answer because it's nothing new, but why do they do it this way? They have 2 years to hold hearings. I get it. Legislation should move deliberately and slowly because it has a great impact on our life, but this seems like a system that's broken.
Certainly when you see where we're at today, you mentioned the economic development bill. Another bill I would point out is there's a bill that basically allows the state to pool resources to apply for billions in federal dollars for infrastructure, right? Really a critical bill. And as you say, no one wants the situation we're in right now, where we've got critical pieces of legislation that haven't gotten done. And so I think that means we do need to think about, okay, how do we prevent this from happening next session? What are the elements that need to change? But I also think that in the here and now, we also have to strategize for how do we get these things done? Because as you say, we do have rules in place in the House and the Senate about when formal sessions end. But what's more important, accomplishing, I think, some of these critical pieces of policy or some of those rules, I think it's getting things done.
Well, grabbing that federal dough as much as we can, that's a no-brainer. What happened to that one?
I think it's a bill that you saw the Senate and the House Act is based on a bill filed by the governor. And what tends to happen, especially as we get closer to that July 31st, is realistically speaking, the bills that kind of have to happen by the end of July, the conventional wisdom are bills that require a roll call vote. They require every member to be on the record. And there's only certain bills that require that, one of which would be a bill that is borrowing money on behalf of the state. The economic development bill does that. That's why July 31st is kind of considered such a key date for that. For other bills where that's not a provision, that are easier to move forward in those so-called informal sessions you mentioned, some of those get prioritized a little less. But I think as we kind of figure out where we're at now, we need to identify those critical bills to get done in the weeks and months ahead.
Is there a fear of roll call votes?
I don't think that's what happened to the economic development bill, right? This is a bill that likely would have passed unanimously in both branches, I think, if it were to be resolved. I think what happened is you had a number of major policy provisions and you didn't have a lot of time.
Wow. All right, let's dig a little deeper into some of the recent events up on Beacon Hill when we continue our conversation with Doug Howgate of the Massachusetts Taxpayers Foundation in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to our conversation about the semi-meltdown on Beacon Hill this past week with our guest Doug Howgate, president of the Massachusetts Taxpayers Foundation. So, Doug, there was this extraordinary scene last week or the week before where Senate President Karen Spilka used the exact same language in an explanation of why the Senate probably wasn't going to move on Boston's effort to expand its commercial tax rate. The same language that House Speaker Ron Mariano had used to explain why the House wasn't supporting a Senate initiative on a whole nother topic. She was kind of mocking him. That relationship is on the rocks, huh?
Well, what I think happens at any end of session and over any 2-year period, I've worked for or with many of these people involved. You're used to working with prominent policymakers where there are going to be differences of opinion, right? Whether it's on politics, on process, on policy. And truth be told, over a 2-year period, those differences of opinion, especially when time gets tight, I think can become more exacerbated. I really see that more as a result of the frustration of some of these big bills not getting done, as opposed to the root cause of it. If you go back to other end of sessions with prior leaders, I think you'll see kind of similar frank exchanges of opinion about who thinks that somebody else is at fault for one bill or another. And really what I think it gets down to is a lot to do a very short period of time on some complicated issues where people come with some different opinions.
That's a very charitable analysis by you. As long as I've been covering politics here, which is, is over 150 years, the House and Senate institutionally don't like each other or look down on each other. And it seems to me not much has changed.
But here's what I would say is I think that the characteristics we saw over the last week of things not getting done, I don't view those as much different than what we would have seen in 2022, in 2020, or 2018. Right. Now, you could view that as a good thing or a bad thing, but at the end of the day, when it comes to kind of, how do we get past that and get some of these key bills done, I think that's the task before us for today and the weeks ahead, and not to just wait until January.
Let's talk a little bit about Governor Moore Healey and her agenda. Now, she got a number of important pieces of her agenda through the legislature in this session, but a number of very important pieces, highly touted, like the Municipal Empowerment Act, relaxing the rules on local option taxes and boosting local aid to schools. That was introduced last year. Nowhere to be found. What gives with the Healey legislative relationship? Well,
I think you've got to look at the spectrum of kind of the priorities. One, I would point to the tax relief bill from last fall as kind of one of the marquee pieces from last year. And this year, you'd probably point to her housing bond bill, which was one of the things that did make it over the finish line this week. It's about a $5 billion bond bill. So I think those are some of those key priorities. But I'm sure she is talking to legislative leaders about the economic development bill. I'm sure she's talking about that federal funds legislation I mentioned. I think there's always going to be pieces of a administration's legislative agenda that don't make it over. If you were to kind of highlight ahead of time what are the top three, for me it would be things that speak to our affordability, our competitiveness, right? Taxes, housing, economic development. 2 of those got done, 1 hasn't yet, and I think it's got to.
You talk to local mayors, and they claim they're in a desperate situation. They need more flexibility to keep up with inflation and so forth. So that's what her bill would have done.
So obviously there are a couple elements of her agenda that really didn't get the same kind of attention and really didn't see much movement. But I think the focus for right now is probably going to be on that economic development bill.
Wow, a lot going on. Doug, we appreciate you helping us understand it and having you back again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming by, and thank you for joining me.